Hey, welcome into the Hot Read podcast for Friday, April the 19th. I'm your host, Easton Freeze, director of published content here at BroadwaySportsMedia.com. We're also brought to you by the 440 Podcast Network. You can follow me on social media at Easton Freeze. I am joined just 2 hours and 50 minutes away from the Chicago Bears being on the clock in the 2024 NFL Draft by producer JT, who you can follow on social media at JT_Ruhnke. JT, 1 week to go. How we feeling?
I've been better. As I was telling you before the show here, this is like the second time in like 4 weeks that I feel another like round of a sinus infection or a cold kicking in. So right now, draft season is kicking my immune system's butt right now. But it's all for the prospects and talking about these prospects. So I'm being a good soldier and marching on.
Get that sick boy off my screen. We've got people to entertain. Yeah, that's what I told you before we started, and I appreciate you being here anyways. But hey, better today than in 1 week from now, right? It would suck to,
Hopefully, right?
Sitting there sniffling and sneezing. And no, you'll be over by then. Don't worry about it. Just drink your emergency or whatever you need to do, and we'll be fine.
I'm trying.
Hey, we're going through two more positional groups today. We've got three left. We've got cornerbacks, edge defenders, and quarterbacks. We're doing corners and edge players, so it's a defensive episode for us today. We're going through the top 10 players at each of those two positions, almost rounding out our 2024 NFL Draft Positional Series. If you're with us here live on a Thursday afternoon, thank you for being here. A couple of things you can do for us. First of all, make sure you're following us on social media at Hot Read Pod on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're watching this live on Twitter or on Facebook, make sure you leave those destinations. Watch us live instead on YouTube. Go to Broadway Sports Media's YouTube page, find this live stream, and in the comment section there is where you can be a part of today's conversation. But JT, before we dive into the positional groups today, and we've got a lot of ground to cover, so I won't beat around the bush here. I wanted to ask you a couple of questions. We are 1 week out from the draft. The next week, it feels like we get as much information in the next 7 days as we have gotten in the last month, just because actual reliable leaks start to come out and teams start to solidify their boards. And so we start to hear things and insiders get word of things. And a lot of what we're going to hear in the next 7 days is bunk. It's a bunch of nonsense, but some of it is going to be real. And so I really, really look forward to every year this week having to sift through the insanity, sift through all of the information, try to decide what's real and what's not. It makes for a really entertaining time. And so with that being said, something that crossed my mind today and has, I think has been on the mind of any reasonable person thinking about the Titans at 7 overall, but it's becoming, I think, more and more a reality, or a possibility, I should say, not a reality. The idea that these top 4 quarterbacks are all going to go in the first 4 picks, let alone the 6 picks before the Titans pick. I'm not so certain that's going to be the case. If I was the one doing the picking for all of these teams, it definitely wouldn't be the case. I only view Drake May and Caleb Williams as the quarterbacks worthy of a top 5, top 10 pick. I view the other guys as further on down the list. Now, there's always, there's a quarterback tax, there's a quarterback premium. So guys that in an agnostic board wouldn't be picked that high, get picked that high anyways. So would it shock me to see all 4 go in the first 6 picks? No. But if even one slips below the Titans at 7, you only get 3 off the board. That means there are 3 other positions gone before the Titans pick. And one could assume it would be 3 receivers and or tackles. And so I threw together a scenario today on Twitter, and some folks got a little bit too caught up in the actual scenario. You could argue like, well, this team would never do that. That's not the point. The point is, if only 3 quarterbacks go, and then you see Marvin Harrison Jr. and Malik Neighbors and Joe Alt all come off the board before the Titans at 7. So the Titans are looking at one of the top 4 quarterbacks still available. One would, I think, assume J.J. McCarthy or Jaden Daniels being that guy. Maybe it's Drake May, but I'll believe it when I see it. And then you've got wide receiver 2 or 3, depending on who you ask, and Rome Odunze out of Washington. And then you've got tackle 2 or 3, depending on who you ask, and Ola Fashanu out of Penn State. I don't see that as a completely unrealistic scenario the Titans can find themselves in on draft night. And if that's where they are, what's the plan? What do you do? I'll let you answer that question. I feel like you and I are both going to immediately say, well, you try like hell to trade back. But let's say that's not a possibility. I would argue some folks are saying, well, trading back, there's no way somebody wouldn't want to come up for Jaden Daniels or for a JJ McCarthy at 7. I'm not so certain of that, because for the Titans to have any leverage at all in that situation, there have to be 2 teams that want to do that, right? Because if there's just one team knocking down the door, to try to get that last quarterback. They're scared the Titans are going to take Jaden Daniels at 7? No. They scared the Falcons are going to do it at 8? No. They scared the Bears are going to take another quarterback at 9? No. The Jets have Aaron Rodgers. Would they do it? Maybe. But like, you don't feel like you have to get to 7. You can see who has the cheapest offer at 7, 8, 9, or 10. So I don't know. Talk me through your thought process in that situation, because I don't think it's an easy answer.
Yeah, my thought process is if the quarterback is there, just blow it up and take that quarterback and restart. No, just kidding. I'm kidding.
No, there's a part of you. There's a dark part of your heart that would enjoy that. I know it. I know you too well.
Yeah, that is fair. I do, like many in this media market, love chaos because it makes my job fun and it makes the conversation very enticing.
Hey,
However,
do you think we'd have a couple of eyeballs on our live show if that happened? You think
we
couple
definitely
extra folks would tune in? Yeah.
But I think in that specific scenario, it's really tough right now because, like I think you also alluded to, there are 2 picks before the Titans pick that really set the. Well, I would argue 3. There are 3 teams out of the 6 in front of the Titans that basically kind of defines the entire first round. The first
This is
one,
where I wanted to go with this, so I'm glad you're bringing it up.
The first one is the Washington Commanders, which I don't think is the main one, but like that is a big one. I'm adding that one as the third one because if they take a certain quarterback, I think that then affects the other 2 options as well. And certainly. So my option there is that if Washington were to take Jaden Daniels, I think that changes the math for a lot of teams versus if they take Drake May. Second team right behind them, the Patriots. I think that they're probably a little bit higher on Jaden Daniels. And that's kind of reading the tea leaves. It could be smokescreen, but that's what we've heard. So if Jaden Daniels is gone, what do? I know their director of scouting today, he's not called the GM, but he has a different title. I think it's director of scouting, came out today and said, we're good to stick and pick at 3, but, they have a lot of holes on that team. So moving out of there would make sense. And the first team that you could think of there is maybe the Minnesota Vikings, who have been linked to Drake May. If you were to fall to 3 there, who might move hell and earth to go up and get Drake May there. And
hang on, are they moving? They're moving hell and earth. No heaven involved in that one.
Nope.
Gotcha.
Nope. They're because
I wanted to make sure. Let's write that
it's
down real quick.
After Kirk Cousins, post Kirk Cousins.
Oh, there's no more heaven involved.
Yes,
I see.
Exactly.
I see. No, that tracks.
So with that being said, the next one is ultimately the New York Giants. Do they take a quarterback like JJ McCarthy there at 6, despite still having a lucrative Daniel Jones contract? Do they beef up the offensive line? I think that's not out of the question to get more protection. Or do they finally solve their problem of taking a wide receiver? I think all 3 of those teams, you really have to believe what they like in your priors. Before you hear anything else going into this week, you have to decide what you think they're going to do and then base the rest of it off of that.
No, you don't. I'm not going to. I'm gonna let my opinion be changed 19 times in the next 7 days.
Maybe that's different. I don't. I see. That's
you're probably that might be the better.
It
method.
might be because I enjoy knowing what I think I know and then just kind of eating the popcorn, and if I'm wrong, I'm wrong, because this is the most unpredictable thing in the entire sports world, I feel like, which is the NFL draft. Right. There's so much that we don't know and that we'll never know that it's really impossible to kind of get to the bottom of it. So for me personally, I'm gonna at the beginning of next week, I know what I know, and you know what? We're just gonna have fun with it.
I recognize what you're saying with the Commanders at 2. I really think that the entire direction of the first round of the draft is dictated by 2 teams in the first round. I think what the Giants do and what the Patriots do are the 2 things that are going to change everything for everybody else involved. To a lesser extent, the other 2 teams that come to mind, and you could throw Washington in there if you want to say 3, but at this point, we're just kind of naming all of the top 7 picks. Like, I think to a lesser extent, the Chargers, what they do at 5, whether or not they move in or out, matters a lot. And then the Commanders at 2. And then if you wanted to say the Vikings with them poised to move up, Kenneth in the comments saying, I think Easton is discounting that some team like the Vikings doesn't want to be, I think what he means is want to be beat to the punch. I'm not discounting that at all. What I'm saying is there has to be the Vikings and somebody else. Like there has to be somebody else to beat them to the punch, right? That's the whole point. And so if there's nobody bidding against them, then that doesn't really. And I think there's also a very real possibility, by the way, that 3 quarterbacks go in the top 6 picks, and one of them is to the Vikings. I could see a world in which the Bears take Caleb, and then the Commanders take Jaden or Drake, and then the Vikings come up to where the Patriots are. They trade up and they take a quarterback, and then the Patriots move back. They're not interested in one, at least in the top 7 picks. The Cardinals aren't taking one. The Chargers aren't taking one. Maybe the Giants do, but maybe they don't, because that's a team and a coaching staff that really needs to win now to keep their jobs. Is that going to be accomplished by getting a quarterback to learn under Daniel Jones, usurp Daniel Jones? I don't know. It gets muddy. And those 2 teams in particular, the Giants at 6, the Patriots at 3, they could go in practically any direction. They could stick, they could trade, they could go quarterback, they could go wide receiver, they could go tackle, they could go cornerback, they could go edge. None of that would surprise me ultimately, because they need all of those things. So that's what's most interesting to me about this draft. And it's going to be a fun week. So we'll talk more about that in the next couple episodes. Let's go ahead and dive into what the main topic is on today's show. Oh, just kidding. I saw Stoney's got a comment. Let's hold the phone. Let's address this, because Stoney's a VIP here. Have you guys talked about the Patriots drafting Joe Alt and building around him and Michael Pratt yet? No, we haven't, because like I just said, the Patriots, they could go tackle. And, if you see the board go Caleb, Drake, Joe Alt, the next 45 minutes of our lives will be a lot of chaos, a lot of prognostication. It'll be like Wall Street. People like trying to reset the boards. We'll be doing the math on the whiteboards and like erasing things furiously and trying.
It would be like the sorry to cut you off, but it's like in Wolf of Wall Street when Leonardo DiCaprio gets his first job of the day, and then all of a sudden the market crashes and everybody just looks up at the board and they're like,
right.
Oh my God.
We live in a new world. Yep. We live in a different world than we lived in 30 seconds ago.
Correct.
All right, let's dive into these top performers at the cornerback and edge positions. JT, let's start with the cornerback side of things. Just to give folks a frame of reference here, on the consensus draft board, the top 10 cornerbacks are all expected to go, I believe, inside the top 100. Let me double check here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Wow. Okay, so just kidding. The top 10 guys, the 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, the top 14 guys are expected to go in the top 100. The 10th guy on the consensus board is Max Melton, who is currently at 56. So a lot of these guys are going, we're going to see 3 or 4 of them, maybe 5 of them go in the first round, and then another 3, 4, 5 go in the second. And so it's a strong group. I have some strong opinions on a couple of these guys who I think are the market's starting to get it correct a little bit. So, not to spoil things, but if you've been listening to the show at all, JT and I are big Max Melton truthers, and folks are finally coming around to appropriately placing him. I was kind of looking forward to irresponsibly ranking him in today's show, but then the market's finally caught up to it. So it's actually kind of just up to date now, but we were there first, just for the record. And then there's a couple guys here and there's a guy sitting here on the consensus board at 38 who I don't even have on my top 10 list. And we'll talk about some of those guys. Do you have the lists we can show for the folks, JT, that are watching with us on YouTube? Let's go ahead and pull those up and take a look at what we have in common here. Okay, so once again, coming in blind, I have not seen these lists. JT has compiled them. I love that you and I both put Kamari. So, we wanted to shoehorn in Kamari Lassiter, but we didn't have the guts to put him higher than 10. Exactly. We're right there together.
And before we just laying some things out here, I think we both have a cornerback. Each of us have one that I believe is in the top 50, if not top 60, that ends up not making our list. Mine would be Ennis Rakestraw Jr. makes my list. He doesn't make yours, I assume. And then TJ Tampa
left off different guys. Interesting.
Yes, and then TJ Tampa did not make my list, and that'll be interesting conversation. But we can start with Kamari Lassiter, I think, who we both have at number 10. I think.
Why would that be, JT?
Well, he was higher on our boards, I think,
and then what
going
happened?
into the Senior Bowl, and then he runs a 4.6 40.
He's slow.
And that really scares some people off, including myself, probably some other teams as well. I don't know. Do you want to give your thoughts first on Kamari Lassiter?
Yeah, I remember tweeting out at the Combine the day. So at the Combine, they do the interviews for a position group on one morning, and then the next afternoon is when they do the testing. And it's like that, morning interviews, then 36 hours later do the testing for every group, and you cycle through them. when the cornerbacks came through for their morning interviews and we were talking to him, and I talked to Kamari Lassiter a little bit, I liked the cut of his jib. I was looking into the numbers on him, looking at where prognosticators had him coming in, reading scouting reports. Like, I like a lot about this guy. And you know what? I talked to some folks there that are clever and plugged into the draft community, talking about how this guy could go higher than folks expect at this point. At the time, I think he was expected to be like a late second round pick. And I was like, this guy could be a sneaky borderline first rounder. And then 36 hours later, we watched him run that 40-yard dash that wait, no, he didn't, right? He did it as pro day, not at the combine.
Correct.
Is that right?
Yeah. Yes. So
okay, so yes, just kidding. We didn't find out that quickly.
Have official
got my timelines crossed.
40. However, there have been rumblings that there is a 4.6
So it was a couple weeks later.
Correct.
No, I think it was his pro day or did he not run at the pro day at all? He did. I think he did. We
Either
got
way,
some.
There is a 4.6.
He ran. I know for a fact he ran a 40 within the last month, and it was
Correct.
a 4.6.
Yes.
And for that reason, details aside, we know that's how slow he is. And that's really concerning, right? He's got the size that you're looking for, 5'11", almost 190 pounds. In his agility testing, 62th percentile 20-yard shuttle, 93rd percentile 3-cone drill. And then on tape, I don't know what there is to say. He's got the look of a guy that can hang in the NFL as a cornerback too. That you don't see the greatest, most raw, unbelievable athlete in what he's done on the field, but he's still, what's the word I'm looking for? Like, he's crafty. Crafty is the word I'm looking for. He's a crafty cornerback that you can see him making up for some of his athletic shortcomings with strong technique and understanding the concept and understanding what the offense is likely to be throwing at him. And that kind of thing you see work in the NFL a decent amount. He's only 21 years old. All of these things about him I like enough to have him in my top 10. It's just the fact that, man, I can't with a straight face tell you he's going to be able to hang on the outside in the NFL with a speed profile like that. I don't think you can fake your way through that at the next level.
Yeah, so there's a couple things that go into my rankings. I think much like wide receivers, when we were talking to Austin Gale on that episode, I think just as much as production matters for receivers, I think production also matters for cornerbacks, in my personal opinion. And I think when looking at Kamari Lassiter's game, I think you have to put production into that as well. 0 interceptions over the last 35 games that he's played. He only has 1 interception in his career during his freshman year, but
Fair.
Doesn't allow a lot of touchdowns though. To his credit, there, he allows a 38.5% completion percentage. So, he's good in coverage, but I think that when you're looking at him like that as a team that, I think his football IQ, like you said, is crafty. I think he's has a really good football IQ, sees the field really well. His work ethic, I think, is also a major plus to his game. But, these teams are going to look at that 4.6 40 and, putting him on the outside against a Tyreek Hill or someone like that, he's just going to lose every single time. And
they're not going to do it.
Exactly. And so I think that's why he's lower on my board. And I think that he may potentially go lower in the draft.
Yeah, ultimately, I don't know where he's going to go because on the consensus board right now, he's at 40. It would not shock me. It would shock me to see him fall out of day 2, but it would not shock me to see him fall into the 3rd round, just depending on what teams are looking for and what they see in the rest of this class. Speaking of the rest of the class, let's transition to my number 9 cornerback, your number 8 cornerback, Andrew Phillips, out of Kentucky. I found Dane Brugler's profile on him when the Beast came out the other day, particularly telling. I think he just double checking because I have consensus boards here comparing different people. Yeah, he had Andrew Phillips higher than pretty much every other significant draft handicapper out there. He's his 9th cornerback along with mine, has a 2nd or 3rd round grade on him. He's a 4-year junior out of college. He's a little bit on the smaller size, 31st percentile height, 39th percentile weight, but crazy athletic, 97th percentile broad and vertical. He's got a decent speed profile, 56th percentile 40-yard dash, ran a 4.48, but a 73 percentile 10-yard split. So he's got that burst you're looking for. I liked a lot of what he did in college. Not the most productive guy, but strong, like, just a strong cover corner. He's not contributing a ton in the run defense. He's not contributing a ton as a blitzer or anything like that, but as a cover corner, he was effective, and I think that he's somebody that is going to be able to hang in the NFL in a rotational role at first. Probably a late day 2, early day 3 pick, but man, I think that he's going to be a guy that you could develop into a starter.
Yeah, I think I'm with you there. I really like Andrew Phillip. He was one of the guys outside of, Quinyon Mitchell lighting the Senior Bowl on fire. I think Andrew Phillips, along with a couple of other guys on this list, were guys who stood out and kind of made a name for themselves at the Senior Bowl. When I see Andrew Phillips, really, this has been pretty close to home comp, but Roger McCreary comes a lot to mind in the ability for him to play press man coverage there. He has the versatility on the inside or outside. I think that because of his size, like you said, the man coverage is tough for him to play, but he has potential to be one of the best inside corners in this class. And I think that, as far as fit for the Titans, I'm not sure they'd be looking for yet another press man corner to add to the rest of this group. But then again, you have Roger McCreary on a expiring contract. And if they were looking to maybe move off of him after the 2025 season, I believe he has one more year on that deal. And you want to develop a guy like Andrew Phillips, I think that's a great selection for the Titans on day 3, especially given his profile.
Hey, talk to me about Ennis Rakestraw Jr. out of Missouri, who's your number 9 cornerback. I chose to leave him off my list. He would have been 11 or 12. We didn't see him at the Senior Bowl. He was supposed to be there. Ultimately, could not attend. So I going based off what we've seen on tape primarily, and looking at his physical profile, I'll let you give the positives first before I tear the guy down. But I have some concerns about him to the point that I did not get him onto this list.
Right. So I think that one of the concerns that you're going to bring up is the athleticism, and I'm with you.
Do not
there.
Forecast my concerns.
Okay, I'm just saying, getting out in front of it. I think the big thing I liked about him, and he's one of those guys which I'm with you, and that's why he's pretty low on this list. And consensus board, I believe he's higher than an Andrew Phillips or a Max Melton, but I think that athleticism, much like Kamari Lassiter on our list,
38th overall, borderline first rounder.
I think in NX Rakestraw Jr., I think teams are going to look at that athleticism profile and say that's just not going to cut it for us as a second round pick, maybe even first round pick. But the thing I do really like about him is how sticky he is in man coverage. I mean, he is really productive in man coverage, and that's something on his tape that I really did like. But like you said, I'll let you go in on the athletic profile, but I had to get him on this list just because, and we'll talk about someone on your list a little bit later, but he, for me, had some traits that I liked, and I had to get him on this list.
One of the words I read in description of Ennis Rakestraw Jr. was he's a pugnacious defender, which I think is fair. And he has to be, because he's small and not the most agile, fast, athletic guy in the world. Like, that is the killer combo for me here, that he's 14th percentile weight, only 183 pounds, does not have the frame either to really add a bunch of meat to that bone, I don't think. And then 34th percentile broad, 43rd percentile 40-yard dash, 51st percentile 10-yard split. Like, he doesn't have a whole lot of burst. He's got a little bit of length working for him, 70th percentile arm length. So, like, that's good, I guess. But there were just too many things that I saw. I felt like his game was a little bit maxed out a little bit at the college level. And part of that just due to the fact that he's not the most athletic guy in the world. So that aggressiveness, that stickiness, maybe that's what he can hang his hat on at the next level. But if he's not playing, in college, he was at his best in press man. I don't know how he's going to be able to hang in zone, and which is something he's likely to see pretty often at the next level. I don't know. With none of that long speed you're looking for, without the build you're looking for, I couldn't go for it.
I think I'm with you on that one. I mean, you look back at some of the tape, you can look at the LSU game, his best game arguably of the season. And I think that's why his stock rose so much, because you look at that game and he had a really good productive game. But like Stoney says in the comments here, Ennis Rakestraw plays like his knees creak when he gets out of bed in the morning.
Well, his name sounds like he's old enough for that to be the case.
This is also true.
Middle ages, odd name. Ennis Rakestraw Jr. versus Lad McConkey
like
is something out of
exactly.
That's a joust.
It's a joust
in the King's parlor.
I would like to see them play against each other at the next level.
I'd go to the joust.
Ennis Rakestraw Jr. I'd be there for it. However, I think that you look at some of those traits like the stickiness in man coverage, and a team could, think that they could really get something out of him and get the best of him that way.
All right, let's get to our favorite guy on this list. Let's just go ahead and do it. Max Melton out of Rutgers. He's been our boy since we were introduced to him at the Senior Bowl in January. Has flown up people's lists. He is now on the consensus board up at number 56. I'm going to check the history on this. Yeah, so like at the Senior Bowl, he was on the consensus board at like 138, clearly firmly in the day 3, round 4 or 5 category. Now he is firmly in the second round conversation, and I think for good reason. I'll let you go first on what you love so much about Melton.
So, I mean, he's the first guy on this list that, despite maybe not having the biggest size in the world, the athleticism really makes up for it in his game. You look at, his 91st percentile vertical jump, 98th percentile broad jump, 83rd percentile 40-yard dash with a 4.39. Size is where you could knock a guy like Max Melton, 42nd percentile height with a 27th percentile weight. However, I think he has a really interesting backstory. Of course, he is the brother of Bo Melton, wide receiver for the Green Bay
NFL
Packers.
Legend, of course, yes.
And so in high school was a wide receiver himself. So I think that's something he really hangs his hat on, as well as that playing former wide receiver turned cornerback. It kind of allows him to see the game a little bit differently than cornerbacks themselves. I think at the next level, despite that size, when we saw him at the Senior Bowl, much like an Andrew Phillips or Quinyon Mitchell, I think he was my second best cornerback that week, because literally you put him up against a Luke McCaffrey or a Ladd McConkey like that. Dude was still sticking with some of the shiftiest route runners of the week, and I really like that about him. And at the next level, I think his football IQ is something that teams are going to really value, and why you're seeing him rise up boards.
Yeah, the athletic profile makes up for the lack of size 100%. Yeah, you took pretty much every word out of my mouth there. I think that he is a tenacious defender. The athleticism shows on tape. He's not somebody that necessarily has to start on the outside, but he has a ton of experience in college on the outside. So if you wanted to throw him out there, I think that he would be just fine. He's got inside or outside versatility. He's got the athleticism you're looking for. He's just not the biggest guy in the world. And for that reason, I think he is worthy of a day 2 pick. I would be super comfortable taking him in the 3rd round if I was the Titans and found myself with an extra 3rd round pick somehow. Let's do TJ Tampa next, who is on my board and not on yours. So let me give the reasoning as to why I have him. And I'm going to pull up his athletic testing numbers real quick. So the biggest reason why he's on my board and as high as number 6, he's basically I think he's one of my guys in this draft, because he has a frame you can't teach. He's got athleticism that I think is going to be able to hang at the next level. So 71st percentile height, 34th percentile weight, very tall and thick enough at 190 pounds to where I think if he wanted to put some weight on, he could. He plays big. He looks big out there, and he's got movement skills at a size that you aren't quite expecting. It's that category of guys where you turn on the tape and you see them lined up, and based on how big they are on the screen, you're expecting to see one thing. And then once the ball is snapped and they are out moving in the field, you're like, that is not quite what I expected. That's kind of crazy. I just like Tampa a lot for the traits that he brings. Is he on the rawer side? Yeah, I think so. Had a relatively decent production in college, but some inconsistency there. It's just the unique size, the unique fluidity, the unique athleticism in the backfield. I think that he's somebody that is worthy of a high day 2 pick. And I like a lot of what I saw on his tape.
Yeah, so that for me, the tape is the biggest thing for me. I just wasn't, I see some of those things, but there wasn't a certain element of
flashy.
It's
not flashy.
That stood out to me. I mean, you look at some of the.
It's just solid,
especially when you're looking at some of the tape where he's playing the best of the best, like a Texas. I think on that tape he really struggled. I kind of look to comp him a little bit to like an Andrew Booth Jr., who I personally wasn't high on coming out in the draft. And that's just kind of my preference on a guy like that. He fits that kind of mold of cornerback. He probably would be 11 on my board. So like, it's not like I'm putting him all the way down, like where I don't know, maybe in like
where I have Ennis Rakestraw Jr.
Maybe exactly. But I think he can develop into a starter at the next level because, like you said, the build is promising, and he has some of the intangibles.
By the way, another thing that comes along with that height, he's got phenomenal length, and that allowed him in college to have 98th percentile forced incompletion rate in the college football landscape last year. So if you throw it his way and he is even remotely in the area, he's going to get a finger on the ball, which I think that those are the kinds of traits that I want on my team. So that's why I have him at 6. Let's go to Mike Sainra still out of Michigan. He is your cornerback 6, my cornerback 7. What'd you like about Mike?
Well, I think the biggest thing comes back to production. I think production alone is going to get him drafted on day 2, maybe even pretty early. If you look over the last 2 years at Michigan, where he really stepped up his game, 7 interceptions over the last 2 seasons, allowed passer ratings of 83.3 and 71.8. He might be the best zone coverage corner in this class. I think this is where you start to look at, his man coverage is something that I don't think you're wanting to put him on an island a lot, but when you're playing a zone type coverage, he was one of the best, a 82.3 PFF grade this past season. And, he's just continued to get better and better at Michigan. The one knock I do really have on him is that he's really, really old. He'll be 24 starting his rookie season.
So old, a little bit younger than me, just the oldest. Yeah,
exactly. Right. For football players, I should
say.
Right. But I think that he could start day 1 if you want to move him inside to the nickel, based on his ball skill and the patience that he plays with. That led to a lot of production in college, and I think there's some things to like about it, but I don't see a lot to like on the outside that would make me put him in maybe a top 5.
You're right about the production. In 15 games last year, 44 tackles, 6 interceptions, 6 PBUs. He's a versatile ball hawk, and he would be higher on my list if not for the age, but more primarily the size concerns. 5'9", 182 pounds. So he's going to be likely a slot at the next level. But he's a playmaker out there, man. He's got great anticipation, very strong ball skills. He's a strong athlete. He's got decent versatility, decent athleticism, not decent versatility, hence the reason why he's at number 7 on my list. But I like him a lot, and it's just going to be a fit thing for the team that drafts him. If they're looking for a strong corner to anchor the interior of their cornerback group, he's your guy. I like him a lot. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that.
Let's go to the top 5s then. Let's pull up the next slide here and see what we've got. So we have got the same 5 guys, not shocking at all. The 5 guys you could realistically see go in the first round of this year's draft. Pretty significantly different orders here. I am shocked you did not put our boy Quignon at 1. I will fight you about that later. But let's start with Kool-Aid McKinstry, who is one of 2 guys in this group of cornerbacks who we're talking about that fall into the guys that came from, just kidding. There's only 1 set of these in cornerbacks. There's 2 in the edges. We'll get to in a second. But guys that played the same position as another guy in this draft from the same school. That's Kool-Aid McKinstry and Terrion Arnold, both out of Alabama this year. And Kool-Aid is the other guy. I have talked to some smart folks that would argue, man, I wouldn't be shocked if Kool-Aid ended up being the better cornerback at the next level. What'd you think about Kool-Aid on tape?
So I think that he arguably has the best football IQ in this class. I think his vision.
Pause. Are you trying to FaceTime me right now? It says JT Ruhnke is trying to FaceTime me.
Oh, I don't know. Maybe I accidentally pressed that. My bad.
You trying to get a hold of me? Because I'm right here. You can say it to
no,
my
it's
face.
okay. My bad.
I should have just answered. I should have just answered.
Like we could have had that thing where it's
could have held it up to the screen and is
exactly
Inception.
Right.
Yeah. Anyways,
sorry. McKinstry has arguably the best football IQ of the class. He's not the most athletic prospect, I think, in this class, but when you look at him on tape, the vision on the field, I think, is something that's unmatched. You look at his production as well, 19 receptions on only 39 targets this past season. He's really a refined player too. 0 penalties allowed or taken in 2023. And like you said, when talking to people about Kool-Aid McKinstry, there's a little bit of this element that when you watch his tape or watch a Terrion Arnold, you're wondering why Terrion Arnold is getting a lot more, is getting targeted a lot more than a Kool-Aid McKinstry. And maybe that's because teams know that because of his, his completion percentage allowed at 48.7%, as well as, just the targets this year went way down. He's just getting better and better, more refined in his game. You wonder if that's the reason why Terrion Arnold was getting targeted more, because this guy was just absolutely locked down this past season, and I think he's definitely worth a first round selection.
He's got the size you're looking for. 6'1", 199 is that A+ across the board in terms of size and length. Very long levered guy. He's got a physical play style that matches the size. Decent production, 32 tackles and 7 PBUs in 14 games last year. 32-inch arms on a corner is delicious. The concerns for me is getting his head turned, finding the ball at times not the greatest. And he only produced in two. He only produced 2 picks in 3 seasons at Alabama. So in terms of actually getting a hand on the ball, decent production at the college level. Coming down with the ball, not great. And so there's just a couple of high level traits from a corner you're looking for, the icing on the cake kind of thing, a ball winner, somebody that is going to create those oh so valuable turnovers. He may not be that guy, at least not immediately, but generally speaking, betting on those traits, betting on that physical play style that matches a very big frame for a cornerback, I can get behind that all day long at 21 years of age, no less. So I like Kool-Aid a lot. Let's do Nate Wiggins, and then we'll get to Cooper DeJean, and I'll fight you or anybody else like Kenneth here in the comments asking if Cooper DeJean being a safety is a part of today's conversation. Oh yes, it is, and I'm going to fight anyone that thinks he is one because I think he's a cornerback. But first, Nate Wiggins out of Clemson, skinny little guy, but feisty, fantastic defender. There's a reason why he's considered a first round talent. What'd you like about Nate?
Yeah, I mean, the size is the biggest knock on him, right? 2 percentile weight at 173, but I mean, he isn't a tall dude.
Percentile, baby. It's not great.
Percentile height. But what I really liked about him is despite that weight difference, going up against some of the taller wide receivers this past year, like a Xavier Legette, he still was able to shut them down. I was personally at that game where it was Xavier Legette versus Nate Wiggins. Nate Wiggins kind of locked him up to the point where they were just trying their best not to get Xavier Legette on Nate Wiggins anymore. You look at him, 18 of 41 targets, so it's not like teams weren't trying to take advantage of that size difference, but he simply was not allowing them to do that. Only allowed 176 yards, a 44.4 passer rating this past season, best of his career. And you just kind of look at his year-to-year progression, and he just continued to get better and better. He needs development more in the technique because of how tall he is. That's something that is going to need more development at the next level. But because of those traits and how fluid he is at that size, it gives me confidence that he can be an every down starter at the next level.
Yeah, he's an electric player, and I like a lot about what you see on his tape, considering going in thinking he might get bullied a little bit out there. You're right that he doesn't really. He's able to hang with guys that are bigger than him, and he's got, even though he's one day of fasting away from falling into the Flat Stanley conversation as another top corner from last year's draft, whose name I'm totally blanking on, out of Mississippi State. Help me out here.
Manuel Forbes.
Manuel Forbes, thank you. Our original Flat Stanley king, Nate Wiggins, is bordering on that, but he's only 20 years old, crazy fast, right? He ran a 4.28, as you should at that size profile, but he's got the long speed to hang with anybody at the next level. And so, yeah, could the size be an issue? There are some inconsistencies with like trying to play the run. He's not going to be a blitzer for you. The ball hawk instincts that he has are strong enough. The long speed that he has is strong enough to qualify him as a first round talent for me.
Yeah, so, I mean, personally, I think that Howie Roseman takes one look at him at the Eagles and he says, "That's mine. I want
Eagle
that."
right there for the Eagles." Yep. All right, let's talk about Cooper DeJean, who many have classified as a future safety of America in the United States, in the NFL. He is 6'1", 203, a junior at 21 years old. Last year, pretty productive at Iowa, 41 tackles, 2 interceptions, and 5 PBUs. He is a playmaker. He is a ball hawk. He's got the size you're looking for. The biggest question is whether or not he has the athleticism and more particularly the fluidity, the range, the shiftiness to hang at the cornerback position. Some people question his stiffness. Some people question his ability to sink his hips and hang with a really talented receiver in the short area. I think I saw enough of him doing those things for my questions to be assuaged. he doesn't at times he has trouble finding the deep ball. And so like locating the ball is one of the bigger technique things for him that is a little bit concerning. A little bit of an injury history, had a broken fibula that he's just now coming back from. A lot of people are like, oh, he's good safety because he didn't do some of the athletic testing at his pro day, or maybe just because he's coming off a broken foot. Like that could also, or broken leg, that could also be a part of it. I don't know. But he's so sticky. He's a tone setter. He plays big. He plays fast. He plays strong. You watch some of like the high school highlight tape that's out there of him. He was a multi-sport athlete, and he was the white kid dunking on kids in high school basketball. He's a freak athlete, and just because he's going to be the first white corner since 1927, I don't think that should scare us off of letting him play on the outside at the next level, because I think that he really is the exception here.
What about man coverage? What
about it? You don't have to play that at the NFL level, right? I don't think you have to play that at the NFL
I don't know.
I think he can hang. Are you going to put him on your Tyreek Hills? Is he going to be lining up against Jalen Waddle? No. But can he hang against a bigger body, stiffer? Like put him on a DK Metcalf? I trust him to hang in man. He's not going to get out physical.
I don't know. I don't know.
He's a physical player. He's a physical player.
That is fair. I just don't. I mean, he made my top 5. If he's getting beat,
if he's getting beat, it's because somebody's dropping their hips and running away from him. Like they're just leaving him in the dust.
He's my number 1 safety with a bullet, easy, signed, sealed, delivered.
I agree.
He's my cornerback 5 because I just don't think like you can.
So what you're saying is he's a cornerback.
You can say into the void all you want, like the Peter Skronce conversation. I give him a chance. It's different
than that though, because this time I'm right. It's different than that because this time I'm right.
Okay.
So
then we'll leave it at that.
Listen, all I'm saying is when we did the safeties episode, you didn't try to bring him up, and here he is on your cornerback episode.
Yeah, because I wanted to wait for this one.
I think you're telling yourself there a little bit.
Okay, sure.
Everyone in the comments saying he's a safety. You can comment 100 times. I'm not going to throw it up on the board. You're muted. Okay. Let's go to the top 2 guys in this class who we agree on. We just don't quite agree on the order. Let's start with Terrion Arnold out of Alabama, the better of the 2 Alabama cornerbacks in the eyes of many. He's also got a very strong build, like his running mate from Alabama, 6 foot 189, 21 years old. Crazy productive last year in 14 games, 63 tackles, 5 interceptions, 12 PBUs, strong athlete. There's not really anything like, did you find much to put in the negatives column for a Terrion Arnold? I haven't. Terrion Arnold. I got to slow it down.
There really isn't a lot of negatives with him. You know, you look at his size, and then also you just more so. I think he is one of. Sorry.
What? James,
don't worry about it.
Don't worry about it. I hate you so much. All right.
I'm with you, James. I'm with you. I think that he'd be worth it.
There was a very large explosion outside my house just now. I don't know what it was.
I don't know what's happening.
It sounded like a firework.
The one thing you could look at potentially, Terrion Arnold, you know, he does. He's not as good in man coverage as he is elsewhere on the field. But I think when you talk about the person and his attitude and just, you know, the leadership qualities that he brings, you get a little different vibe from a Terrion Arnold. I think from some of these other cornerbacks.
Wow. First white corner since the 20s, and you're going right to the locker room guy. That's crazy. That's crazy.
You know what?
Can't even talk about how athletic he is.
Should I just stop now? You can't let it go.
No, I'm sorry. You're right. I can't, but I'll let you continue. I'm sorry.
Okay. You know, also really productive at the next level. 5 interceptions in 2023, only allowed a passer rating of 50.7. You know, I think that if you draft him in the early 10s, in the teens, I think that he can be a day 1 starter for you.
But I think we agree, so we'll leave it at that. Good cornerback, Cooper DeJean. Okay. Sorry, I'm still on Cooper DeJean.
You are
Terrion Arnold. I'm so sorry. Yes. We're talking about him. Yeah. Tenacious, sticky defender. Just like reading my notes here because I'm flustered, still thinking about Cooper. Consistently making a play on the ball. That's the biggest thing for me. Like if I had to point to one big thing for him as my number 2 cornerback is that he gets after the ball and is proactive pretty consistently in his routes. He's not reacting or like playing the receiver as much as he is playing the ball on a consistent basis, and that's something that is really a difficult thing to teach. And he seems to come pretty naturally to him. So that's what I like most about Terrion Arnold. Okay. My number one corner, your number two corner. We agree these are the top two guys. It is Quinyon Mitchell out of Toledo. Of course, we all watched every bit of Toledo football last year, so we're all very familiar with him before this offseason. Got the build you're looking for, 195, 6 foot. He's 22 years old. At Toledo, you'd imagine, pretty productive, 41 tackles, only one interception, but 18 PBUs last year. We saw him at the Senior Bowl in Alabama earlier this winter, and in January we were left pretty flabbergasted by the production that the performance he put on in those couple of days of practice.
Yeah, I think, like you said, the numbers are the numbers. A 4.33 40, really good height and weight, both upwards of 60th percentile for the position. You look at his 74th percentile vertical jump, 73rd percentile 10-yard split. He's got the build of a prototypical corner, and he's got the speed, and I think that's something that teams are going to really like about him. My one concern, and why he's not my number one, because it's very close. It is very close. I think when you look at the tape, it's hard, and we saw him do it. We saw him do it at the Senior Bowl. Play more man coverage and on the receiver on a lot of the drills.
Is it the level of competition
at the Senior Bowl? I wonder, just when you look at it, if you look at the tape, he played a lot of off coverage, and I'm wondering how much of that can translate immediately at the next level. I think you look at some of the competition he's going up against. He's going up against a Roman Wilson and a Brennan Rice. These maybe day 2, day 3 guys. I'd be more interested to see him go up against these more NFL start immediately and be productive wide receivers, and see how good he can be in press man coverage and just not off coverage.
That's fair. I don't have as much concern about him playing in press. I think that the skill set, the size, the athleticism is going to translate there. And even if it takes some learning, I think that he can handle that eventually. If I had to pick one thing, it's just the level of play. We don't have a whole long list of examples of him playing against top competition. Basing it off of some of the better competition he played at the 3 days of practice at the Senior Bowl, that's helpful, and you get a frame of reference, but it's still a lot of against air. It's a very small sample size. At Toledo, he just doesn't have a ton. There's not a long library of examples of him doing it against the best guys. That's not stopping me from taking him in the top 15 picks. I'm all the way there on him, and I'm not concerned about that. But if you told me he ended up just not being able to hang at the NFL level, I would mentally go back to that and say, sometimes you can't accurately project what that giant leap in level of competition is going to be like until you see it. So that is Quinyon Mitchell, and that is our top 10 cornerbacks in the NFL draft. With that, we transition to the second position group of today's conversation. It's the top 10 edge rushers in the 2024 NFL draft. And this is, if you're listening on podcast, is the second episode we're recording here live in one fell swoop. So welcome in. We appreciate you being here. This is a fair time to ask everyone that's with us live on Thursday, if you have not yet, hit retweet, hit like, hit subscribe, hit all those buttons for us that we would appreciate you hitting. Please take a moment to do that now as we transition into the edge rusher conversation. JT, we haven't talked about the Titans a whole lot on this episode. And in the grand scheme of these two positions, I would bet a significant amount of money that they came away with at least one of the guys we talk about today because they really could use them. And if I had to guess which it'd be probably one of these guys we're about to talk about on the edge rusher board. I think that especially in the second round, one of these guys very firmly in play. They've got a number of options they could address in the second round, which we'll get to here in just a second. But for a frame of reference on the strength of this group, the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 guys in this class based on the consensus draft board are going to go in the top 100. And for good reason. It's a strong group. Let's go ahead and throw up the board here, JT, and try to decide where we want to begin today's conversation. Let's just start at the top with you. You've got Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA on your list. He is not on mine. So talk to the folks a little bit about Gabriel Murphy out of UCLA.
Yeah, I think Gabriel Murphy, especially on tape and what I saw, there's a lot to like about this guy. I think that he probably is maybe a early day 3 guy, maybe in the 4th or 5th round here. But I liked a lot of what I saw, and he was someone I mocked to the Titans in my mock draft 1.0. he still really excelled this year despite being opposite one of the best edge defenders in this class in Laiatu Latu. I think that despite being next to someone like that caliber, I think he still was able to produce. He had a 14.8% pass rush win rate in 2023, 8 sacks, 23 hurries, a 4.63 40-yard dash at his size, 6'2", 251. I think he's only, I think his official measurements, he came in closer to 260 on those, 4.63 still on that speed is really good speed for a guy who's currently a day 3 pick. The biggest thing for me though is he was still able to really produce in his final game of the season, which Laiatu Latu did not play in. So that kind of crossed out all
reference there. Yeah,
it crossed out all doubts in my mind that this was really something that he was a product of a Latu. So I don't
not
think he's going
merchant,
to go. Yes, exactly.
As
one would say, as the kids say these days.
Us being
I think exactly. I think that, I don't know if he's going to go on day 2. I'd be surprised if he goes on day 2, but especially when you start to look at that first pick the Titans have in the 4th round, I think that he could be someone that you could slot in as a rotational guy right now behind an Arden Key and Harold Landry. And I think he could really be a role player from day 1.
Let me return the favor here because I've got Braylon Trice out of Washington on my list, unless he's in your top 5. I don't think that he is on yours. Super productive, crazy productive. Last year in college at Washington, 15 games played, 49 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks. I think that he's got good hand usage. He showed his ability to participate effectively in stunts on tape pretty consistently. He's not got the high-end burst you're looking for, and that's why he's further on down my list. Not necessarily going to be a consistent threat at the edge of the next level. Certainly a rotational player in that way, but as a late day 2, early day 3 pick, I can absolutely see a team going after him and making him a valuable addition to their team in a rotational role. So that is Braylon Trice out of Washington. So we've each got 2 guys on here that does not have. So I'll throw it back to you. You've got Austin Booker out of Kansas. Tell the folks about Austin Booker.
Austin Booker is a really interesting prospect in the fact that he really has only played 505 snaps in his college career. So this is a guy who is still very much developing. And I think that you might be able to get him at a discount, despite only playing a little bit over 500 snaps this past season, where he played in 12 games, had 9 sacks, 2 quarterback hits, and 27 hurries. So super productive at the next level, playing in the Big 12. A couple of his best games also came against really good opponents like Texas and BYU. He's a guy that I think right now he can be on a developmental fast track for a team that takes a chance on him late day 2. Some of the measurables as well you really like. 6'4", 70th percentile. The weight, I think that he does need to add weight, 3rd percentile. So skinny boy on the outside, but that allows him to have a little bit more versatility in his move set. I think, 73rd percentile broad dump, 41st percentile vertical jump. So he does have a little bit of explosiveness, and, 4.79 40 also is good. He has above 60% wingspan. This is a guy who is a nice build. If he put on a little bit more weight, I think that he could go a lot higher. But I think the biggest thing for him is that he just doesn't have a lot of experience. And I think that, you're not taking this guy to be your starter day 1, but I think down the road, he could be really something.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. The last guy that is on one board, but not the other, is Jonah Ellis out of Utah. He's my number 9 edge rusher in this class. 6'2", 248. He's super energetic. He plays with a high motor, very productive in college. In his final year, he put up 24 hurries and 13 sacks, only 2 hits, which is the kind of thing that indicates maybe there's a little bit of a cleanup element to his game. So he's going to be a rotational player for you. If he wants to become a difference maker at the next level, he's going to need to get stronger and maybe a little bit bigger. 246 ain't bad, but if he could stand to put a little bit more weight on, I think that would be helpful for him. But he's got the quickness and flexibility you're looking for to be an impactful rotational guy. So I think that's the traits you're betting on there are the energy, the motor, the quickness, and looking at him, he seems to be the kind of guy that get him in an NFL weight room, get him in with an NFL strength and conditioning program. They might can get him bulked up, beefed up, a little bit stronger and he could be a bigger impact. But for now, a rotational guy. So that is Jonah Ellis out of Utah. Moving into our top 8, and I'm gonna laugh if we have the exact same thing all the way down. Our 8 through 6 are the same guys, so we can start with number 8. Is it Adisa Isaac? Adisa Isaac? Do we know how to say his name? Adisa?
I believe it's Adisa. I'm not sure though.
Well, Adisa Isaac is a guy that once again falls into the category of guys that played the same position from the same school in the same draft class. He is from Penn State. We're going to get to another Penn State rusher here in Chop Robinson in a little bit. But Adisa is the other guy here. JT, make the case for him not just being the other guy.
Yeah, so I think that both Penn State guys suffer from the same thing, which is consistency and versatility. I think that both of them have really good, they have the traits to be good at the next level. You look at a guy like Isaac, who is 69th percentile in height. You look at his arm length, both and wingspan, both above the 60th percentile. Explosive athlete, 85th percentile broad jump, 65th percentile vert jump. This is a guy who I think just needs to be more consistent and more revised in his moveset. I think it's really hard to say one or the other is better at this time right now, but he does suffer from having the less prototypical build of a edge defender. 247 pounds, which is 9th percentile for him, which gives him the knock over his partner there. I think that just the bottom line, he is a rotational guy right now, but I think with the proper fit, he can develop into something more.
He's an interesting one because you mentioned his size. Well, first of all, like you said, with both of the Penn State guys, they've got a little bit of that. What is it out of Moneyball where it's like, he's supposed to hit good, but why don't he hit good? Or what is it? You know what I'm talking about? Is that what it is? Whatever it is. The idea that like the whole point is that they can be awesome. So why weren't they? Like where was it? They've got the freaky traits to be better than they were on paper at college. And so like we're going to talk about Chop and the incredible first step that he has that is the kind of thing you can hang your hat on at the next level in a moment. But why didn't that translate to a ton of production in college? So not to preface that conversation too, but the same kind of applies to Adisa Isaac. He's got a funny game because his play style, I think it lends itself more to being a hand in the dirt defensive end, but he's got the build more of like an outside linebacker stand-up guy. So it doesn't quite match as well. But like you said, super fast, violent hands, consistent hand placement. He can win inside. He can gain leverage, do all the things you're looking for, get off blocks, swipes, rubs, clubs, all these things. It's just the level of production and the size. No, I wouldn't say concern, but like the lack of wowing me with the size profile that has him at number 8 for me. And so that is Adisa Isaac out of Penn State. He is, just for reference here, where we're talking about in the draft, he is expected to go in the 70s. So a mid to late day 2 edition. Moving right along to a guy that folks probably haven't heard a whole lot about. I was on a show yesterday talking about him as a guy that I would not hate the Titans targeting in round 2 of the draft. I believe Dan Brugler at The Athletic actually had him going to the Titans in his 7-round mock draft the other day. That's Marshawn Kneeland out of Western Michigan, an edge player who folks obviously did not watch in college. But this guy, if you want to talk about a traitsy son of a gun that NFL coaches take one look at and say, let me get my hands on this guy, that's Marshawn Kneeland.
Yeah, I mean, what are we talking about? Nobody was watching Western Michigan on Saturday?
Name one Western Michigan opponent this year. Who'd they play?
Are they in the MAC?
Central Michigan, maybe? Was there a little
are they in the MAC?
rival? Brother, I don't know. I'll look it up for you.
I don't even know what conference Western Michigan is in. Yeah, I really do like Marshawn Kneeland. Like you said, he's one of those guys, where I think back to, reading the tea leaves this past season and hearing the saying from Rand Carthen, there's some things that you just can't teach. And that's something Marshawn Kneeland has, which is the wingspan and arm length that he has. 90th percentile wingspan, 84th percentile arm length with, some really good speed as well at his size, 6'3", 267. So he's on a little bit of the bigger side. But the production this past season for Western Michigan was really nice. 28 hurries on 3 hits and 6 sacks. This is a guy, like you said, I don't know second round at 38 would maybe be a little rich for me, given some of the other guys who may be there at that pick. But if
It depends on who's there. That's fair. Yep.
Exactly. But if the Titans were to move back in that second round and grab some more capital, I think Marshawn Leland would be a really good fit to instantly be a rotational guy and develop at the next level.
Yeah, I mean, to summarize Marshawn Leland in one word, long. Dude is so
Yes.
long. Let's see, 84th percentile arm length, 90th percentile wingspan. Again, coaches are salivating at almost 84-inch wingspan on an edge rusher. He's somebody that I don't want to disparage the good name of whoever the DC up there at Western Michigan is, but I don't think he's particularly good at his job. From the tape that I got my hands on to watch of him, I was consistently questioning the usage. I'm not sure he knows where the line of scrimmage is, because he was always lined up off, like way off for some reason. I don't know why. I need him to get into the league and have somebody show him where the line of scrimmage is. Assuming that they can do that, I think that he is a really, really intriguing prospect. That production that goes along with the raw traits, the competition not being the best at the college level. I don't really care when he's got this athletic profile, when he's got that length, when he's got the tenacity. I think it was PFF that described his game as like it was a car crash from an action movie. That's the way that he plays. I think that is the perfect way to sum it up in a very positive way. So I like Marshawn Leland a lot. At 38, is that a little bit rich? Probably, but in general, a second round pick, I'm giving it up for a Marshawn Leland. So that is our collective tackle 7. Our tackle edge 7. Our edge 6 is the second other guy on this list. It's Chris Braswell out of Alabama. JT, this is a guy that I think is a lot more popular of an option for the Titans at 38. Would not shock me in the slightest to see them go with a Chris Braswell as an edge defender on day 2. What do you like about Braswell?
I think he's one of the more divisive edge rushers in this class, in the sense that you either think that he was a Dallas Turner merchant or you don't. And I think in our case, seeing him at the Senior Bowl and being able to see him on his own, you see some of the power and strength that he has. Of course, his production was off the charts because of how good that Alabama defensive line was last year. 13 sacks, 10 quarterback hits, and 33 hurries. I mean, he was playing with his hair on fire all season. All of those were, career best for him in college. I think some of the things that make him not into the top 5 with that production, you look at maybe some of his, on tape, I do see, he kind of, he wants to anticipate the play a little bit more, which can get him in trouble, at the line of scrimmage. But I think when you look at the power and size that he has, I think that he can really develop into an every down starter at the next level.
I think so too, man. He just lacks that top elite gear kind of across the board, and that's why he is edge 6 for me in this group. He's got a quick first step, but he doesn't have quite the elite burst. He's not super disciplined against the run. Like, he's not super twitched up as an athlete, but he's got the build you're looking for. 6'3", 251. He's a 70th percentile 40-yard dash guy. Not the most explosive though. Vertical jump, 45th percentile. Broad, 17th percentile. He's got a bigger, burlier frame. So like, I'm not sure whether or not he can win consistently at the NFL level in every situation. I'm not sure that he can be your edge 1, your alpha up there. He may need to be the 2. He may need to be a Robin, but I think he can be a darn good Robin if he's in the right situation. And even though he might not ever become a pass rush like technician, that power, speed, length combination is something that's going to win at the next level. So that is Chris Braswell, and that takes into our top 5 here. And okay, good. They're not exactly the same. That is good to hear. Let's start with the guy that we've talked a lot about on the show already, but let's talk some more about him. Darius Robinson out of Missouri. JT, the thing about Darius that I find so fascinating is his versatility, his ability to play pretty much any position on the defensive line. He did it a lot moving inside and out at the college level. He is the Danico Autry guy in this class. If you're looking for a direct replacement for him at 38 and you're the Titans, where he may be available, I think it makes maybe too much sense for them.
I think so as well. I mean, there's a reason why he was the voted like the I don't think I want to, because it wasn't MVP of the game, but MVP of Senior Bowl week, whatever that award was.
It's like at practice player of the week at his
Yes,
position, as voted on by the guys he went up against. So like the tackles
exactly.
voted on him as the best edge they faced.
Because of like you said, when we were down there, his versatility and his moveset, I
He's getting
think
after it, man.
he really is. And I think that if he was at 38, the Titans would be foolish not to run that card up. Personally, I don't know if he gets there, because I think, whether you want to believe it or not, there's a reason he is going to be in person for the draft. And maybe that's because
Heck yeah, baby.
he has heard and things his agent
Could the
has
Titans
heard.
rescue the loneliest draft attendee
Could
for the
they
second
do it
year
again?
in a row?
Exactly.
Could
right?
they do it
Could they-
again? Perhaps.
Maybe,
One could question
would like
their
to
ability
see
to do
it.
so.
However, like you said, big. I think there's one word for him: big. That's
fella.
really what you can say. 86th percentile height, 91st percentile weight. This dude can clobber you and do it with finesse as well. And I think that's why he is my edge rusher 4, and why I think he really has a good shot to go in the first round.
Yeah, he was supposed to come out last year, and he was going to be like a strong day 3 flyer option, then chose to go and exercise his COVID year, I believe, to go back to Missouri and put on a really strong performance. 27 hurries, 9 sacks, 6 hits, where he's gotten himself into the borderline first round conversation. I think it's for good reason, but he's a little bit of a late breakout candidate. Even though he's played a lot at the college level, he is only 22 years old, so he's not old. Not to confuse that. He's got a lot of experience in college, but he's not super old. His power profile is what makes him a versatile inside-outside guy. Is he going to really bend around the edge and fly past a guy and get off with a great first step every time? Maybe not. But that power is really incredible. And at 296, 6'5", it's not hard to see where it comes from. I think you can line up pretty much anywhere. But man, I think that raw power is something that you like. Just put him in the hands of a defensive line coach and say, figure out where he's going to be best fit. And he can be a strong weapon, but even more valuable sometimes to teams, a versatile weapon, the way that the Titans used Nico all those years, where a guy would go down on the outside, bump him out. A guy would go down on the inside, bump him in. A guy would go down, standing up behind him. We'll move him back. He can play linebacker, play him at the middle linebacker stand-up position, or outside linebacker stand-up position. Like, super versatile in that way. Could Robinson become that guy eventually with the right training? I think that he could. So that's why I am really high on a Darius Robinson. Let's do the other Rob now. Let's go Chop Robinson out of Penn State. He is the one, as I previewed earlier, the notion of if he's so good, why wasn't he good, applies to this guy a lot. Man, he is a freaky athlete on paper. And man, is he enticing to watch play against air, to watch the highlights. Like, you watch the best. It was like the first quarter of, was it the USC game? I forget which game it was, but there was one quarter last year where he just went ballistic. And if you just showed somebody that quarter of the game, they'd say, yeah, he's like a top 5, top 10 pick at worst. It just was inconsistency in his game. So like a lack of polish, a lack of consistency is what has him at edge 4 for me, edge 5 for you. Generally speaking, though, if you can tap into the power, the untapped power that he has within himself as a raw athlete, he can become a game wrecker.
Yeah, I think not comparing him to these other players in the past, but same situation. I think 2 names come to mind: Trayvon Walker and last year's Tyree Wilson.
Yep,
2 guys who at the college level did not really produce
a couple of
that much.
bums. No, I'm kidding.
But the athletic traits were absolutely out of this world. Now, I don't think, because the traits aren't exactly there, that's why he's not really a first round caliber guy right now. But I think a team is going to see those.
Wait, you don't think he's going to be a first round guy, Chop?
I think he's right outside of it.
Okay. I mean, it wouldn't shock me either way, but yeah. I can understand that.
I think that, but the reason why I could see him go into the top, into the first round there, is because of that. These teams love these guys who have the perfect traits, but you just need to mold them. And
he's twitched up to the gills, this guy.
Exactly. We haven't seen it work in the past 2 times that you can really go back to this, but maybe the 3rd time's the charm.
Yeah, man, it's like out of Arrested Development, where it's like people always delude themselves into thinking that they're the exception, that it'll work for them, even though it's never worked for anybody ever. but it could work for us. That's the idea behind a Chop Robinson, who is my number 4, your number 5 player at the edge position. Moving into our top 3, once again, we agree on the top 3. We just disagree on the order. Let's start with Jared Verse out of FSU, another very explosive, very twitched up player, big fella. 6'4", 252, looks and plays bigger than that, I would argue. 23 years old, very productive last year, 41 tackles, 12.5 tackles for loss, 9 sacks. What'd you like about Jared Verse?
Then what's not to like about this guy? Production was at an all-time high for him.
Just don't watch the run game and everything else. Yeah. Who cares about defending the run? The rest of it's kind of sick. Yeah.
Exactly. Like for a Titans team, who cares? You have Jeffrey Simmons on the inside. Just let him get
That's his job. And this other guy's got a different job.
No, right. That's wwhy he's my 3rd, I think, in the run game. He struggles a lot, and you could see that on the tape. But you look at the production, man, if you can just teach him that part of the game, 36 hurries, 15 quarterback hits, and 11 sacks this past season, 2 batted balls as well, all career highs for him. His pass rush win rate.
Was it 11 sacks? I must have it written down wrong. I thought it was 9. Okay, more than I thought.
21% pass rush win rate for him. He's a explosive athlete on the outside. It's the rest of that game with the run game, like you said, that has him landing as number 3 for me.
Yeah, if I have to question his ability to be an impact player at the next level, he's going to be a 24-year-old rookie. So is he maxed out in that way? Is his development peaked? Perhaps. I don't know. Like we mentioned, he's a little bit of a liability, inconsistent in the run game. But he's so powerful. He's so twitchy. He's so explosive as a player. He's got the proven production at the collegiate level. He just shoots the gap every time, and he's gone in a wink. So I like a Jared Verse, and I think that he is worthy of a first-round pick. That brings us to, let's do Laiatu Latu out of UCLA, who is your number 1 edge defender, my number 3 edge defender, and he is another guy. I feel like we're back at the linebacker episode, JT, because I have to specify. He would be, I think he would be my 1. It'd be a razor thin margin between him and Dallas Turner on my board. If, I don't know, the guy hadn't medically retired with a vertebrae issue and thought he never could play football again, and now he's back. That's scary, but other than that, he's I think he's the most natural edge player in this entire class.
Yeah, that's going to be my, once again, like the linebacker segment. What if I told you that he never got hurt again?
What if I told you I turned injuries off for Laiatu Latu?
Exactly. I turned them off. I went to Roger Goodell and I said, we're turning them off.
If you told me that, I'm in. I'm so
exactly. I mean, there's so much to like about this guy. Of course, that's why I had to put him at number 1. I'm sticking on brand this offseason that, what? Injuries be damned. We're going with the guy who I think is the best in the class, and that's Laiatu Latu. Production off the charts, 15 sacks this past season, 36 hurries, 11 hits. This guy really made that UCLA front 7 really work, and that's why when you see him in his game, the move set that he has and the twitchiness and bend that he plays with, you could kind of see that also at the Senior Bowl. Was one of my favorite prospects to watch those first couple of days. And yeah, the injuries are the biggest thing for him. And that's where I'm interested to see how far he may fall or if he stays in that top, 15 to 22 picks.
He's the first guy on this list where you can comfortably say he has the combination of twitch to the gills, crazy explosive, elite athlete, and actually, I want to tell you that I'm going to parse that. Not elite athlete in every element of like his versatility. That's what I'm looking for. His agility, not the greatest. His explosiveness, not the greatest. His vertness broad are relatively pedestrian, but he's fast. And when I say these things about him being a great athlete, it's really just the smoothness, the fluidity of his game on tape. He looks like he plays better as an athlete than he tested, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So he's got that going for him. And the explosiveness paired with the fact that he is truly a pass rush technician. He's got NFL veteran levels, like his bag is NFL vet deep. He implements every move set that there is. Like he's got such a mature element to his game that I think is going to make him a pretty plug and play impact player in a way that like a Chop Robinson, his ceiling may, he's going to take a while maybe for him to get to to that stage. I think Latu's kind of already there, and that's why I have him at number 3, but would probably have him at 2 or 1 if I weren't just not concerned about the fact that he was retired at one point. And there's a neck or a back thing. I always forget. It's a vertebrae thing that is scary. But like my fears are either going to be confirmed or denied by where he goes, right? Like if I see somebody take him at 13, I'm going to be like, oh, well, the league checked him out and like, I feel better about him. Like rock on, let's go Latu. And then if he falls to 29, I'm be like, a lot of teams are scared about him. A lot of teams. What'd you say?
Would you take him at 38 if he fell that far?
Oh, you'd have to. I
think yeah.
So no, okay. So that brings up an interesting conversation. No. It brings up an interesting conversation because people always ask me these hypotheticals where it's like, hey, Caleb Williams falls to 7 for the Titans. What are you doing? Marvin Harrison Jr. Less of a hypothetical. Like Marvin Harrison falls to 7. What are you going to do? Latu at 38. There is, I don't know where it is, but there's like a Mendoza line in these hypotheticals where things go from so good to too good to be true. Like I think the narrative would be if the Titans got Latu at 38, it would be like, hey, 32 teams passed on him once, and then
Another
6 of them passed on him again. And this was supposed to be like, the top edge in the class, a top 15 pick. I think the narrative would be, what don't we know about? What's so scary about this guy? It wouldn't be, wow, they got a steal. Like eventually a steal becomes a, what's the catch? I think that would be a, what's the catch situation. But I would probably still do it, to be honest. Yeah. It just depends on what my doctors told me. So that's Latu out of UCLA. That brings us to our final guy on today's episode. And that is Mr. Dallas Turner out of Alabama. Stoney Keeley, if you are still out there, now's your time to spam the comments. He's a guy that if the Titans were to address the defensive side of the ball at 7, he's really the only guy that one could imagine that's where their heads would be at. Now, listen, is he a very, very good edge prospect? Yes, he is. But there's just something about him when I watch him that I can't get all in on him like I could, his teammate from last year who ended up going number 3 and is now the reigning defensive rookie of the year in Houston, whose name, again, I'm blanking on because I suck at names. JT, help me out.
Will Anderson Jr.
Thank you. It's not that. It's not that guy. And so I'm in. He's a first-round caliber player. Yes. Am I in on him as a top 10 player? I don't know. JT, what say you?
I would say that, like, my comparison for him is like a Josh Sweat type. I think that the biggest knock that you could find on him would be his size. Like why we're not talking about him like a Will Anderson.
6'3", 247.
You have to look at his size, but I mean the speed that he plays with, like
springy.
It's absolutely something any team wants to juice up their defensive line, and it's why if there is one defensive player to go in the top 10, it's probably to the Falcons, and it's probably Dallas Turner because they're missing that a lot. I think there's really, and all of this is a nitpick, right? He can't get taller, like he can only put on so much weight to still have that explosiveness.
Not with that,
dude, man. He could get better in the run game, but like he already is like an above average run defender, so like. Yeah, he's the complete package. I think, I'm not projecting him superstar potential out the gate, but I think he's going to be an every down starter from the get-go.
Yeah, I'm with you that if you told me he could bulk up and keep that explosiveness, keep that first step at the next level, I'd be more in. Very productive, 53 tackles, 14 and a half tackles for loss, and 10 sacks in 14 games last year. It's just, and he's a maxed out athlete, 89th percentile broad, 97th percentile vert, 95th percentile 40, ran a 4.46. So this is an athlete of all athletes, and he is a springy, quick, explosive, tenacious player. He doesn't have that like household name game breaker, Max Crosby, TJ Watt level to his game. I don't see that in him right now. And so he's like, he's just one notch below that, which is very good. I wouldn't take him in the top 10. That being said, if you're taking him at 13, 14, I'm very happy with the Dallas Turner in that range. All right. That's going to be it for us, JT. I think that is all of it, folks. It is almost concluded our top 10 positional series of the NFL draft. If you have missed them and you're interested, they are all out on the podcast feed as of the end of this week. So safeties, cornerbacks, linebackers, edge defenders, defensive linemen, interior offensive linemen, tackles, tight ends, running backs, wide receivers, all out there for your consumption, for your enjoyment. Go and check them out. If you want to skip around to certain guys, in the description of every version of it. So on the podcast form, on the podcast platforms, on Twitter, on my Twitter account, I put the full episodes on there, or on YouTube. You can go and find timestamps on each of the guys in there just to learn about the 3, 4, 5 minute snippet of those guys. So I encourage you to do that, especially if you're wanting to see how some of these guys might apply to and fit into the Titans game plan. And JT, we've just got a couple of episodes left, baby. These episodes will come out for you over the weekend. We'll be back on Sunday afternoon going through the debut of our do and do not draft guide for the Tennessee Titans in the 2024 NFL draft. You and I are both feverishly poring over that right now. A big, long written document over on BroadwaySportsMedia.com, an article that we do every year, which is the magnum opus of our draft cycle. We go through pretty much every position at every round, talking about guys that would and would not be good fits for the Titans, explaining why. A great thing for you to follow along with as you're following the draft coverage next week. Speaking of draft coverage, JT, you and I will be live from somewhere in Nashville, Tennessee, recording, live streaming the first 2 nights of the draft. We'll be watching night 1 on Thursday and night 2 on Friday. All 3 of the first 3 rounds will be live here where you find the show. The podcast platform will have highlights up on there. So on Twitter or Facebook or on YouTube, which is where we recommend you watching, will be live, and we would love for you to be a part of the conversation. We will be having a good time reacting to all of the chaos. I was talking to you earlier today. The Titans have not failed to entertain the last 2 draft cycles, and we're excited to see what kind of mayhem and nonsense they bring to us this year. We'll want you to be tuned in with us to enjoy all of that together. And then on Monday, we'll be doing a live show with Sean McAvoy, going through the top 5 quarterbacks, or top 10 quarterbacks, as well as his insight on having spent time with Malik Willis and, more importantly, Will Levis this offseason, talking about those guys and where they're at in their development. And finally, on Tuesday, our last pod live before the actual main event next weekend with the draft. On Tuesday, we'll be doing Mock Draft 2.0, going through the final prediction of what the first round looks like and what the entire Titans 7-round draft ends up looking like. So very exciting, JT. 1 week away. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
All right. For producer JT, I'm your host, Easton Freeze. This has been the Hot Read Podcast. Enjoy your last week before the draft is upon us. We'll talk to you on Sunday.